Good afternoon, my name is Phil Canvers and I'm the Commercial Director of TrueSec. I'm assuming, and you should never assume, that everyone can hear me all right. If you can't, then please, via the chat box, please just let us know if you can't hear us properly for whatever reason. So thanks for joining us today. This WebEx will take 30 minutes. Obviously, what we can deliver in 30 minutes is reasonably limited. It's not designed to go into massive low-level detail. This is kind of high to medium-level detail. So I'm going to pass you over to Ian Sanderson at some point in the next few minutes. But before we do that, I just want to run through the agenda with you first. All right then, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what is going end of life and end of support in 2020. I think it's really important for you as IT managers, IT directors, system administrators to be able to forecast what's coming down the line. The type of clients that we work with, and I pretty much know all of you that's on the WebEx. I know how many hats you wear. You're working, you're doing everything from maybe case management systems to warehousing systems to basically everything with a plug on the end of it. And I think it's our job as TrueSec to really help you a little bit, to give you a bit of a heads up as to what you're going to need to budget for next year in terms of doing some upgrades. In some cases, it's probably just going to be professional services time, but the point is, we're here to help you identify what's going to be coming end of life and end of support in 2020. On that point, we will define what we interpret end of life and end of support is, because they are two different things. Secondly, we're going to talk about kind of what it means for you. What are the implications of doing nothing? So we'll go into that. Some action points for you to consider, and then finally, how we can help. I just want to go into a little bit of detail about who we are. Many of you on this call have known us for a long time. I'm just going to build this slide out, actually, because it makes more sense. But as part of our rebranding, myself and the other directors took the opportunity just to take a step back, if you like. Doing a rebrand and a relaunch is actually, it's a good opportunity to press the reset button. It's a bit like doing a refresher driving course. So any of the bad habits which you maybe have picked up in the last 20 years, you can try and brush up on. So what we've tried to do with TrueSec is take all of the good bits from SITS Group and PCI and all of the good bits from Pivotal and bring them into one big thing, if you like. And what we've never really done before is we've never had any sort of core values that we would communicate to our customers and also to our staff. So I'm not going to go into these into any detail, but these are, well, there's actually one in there which isn't a core value, and that's the UK-wide bit. And Ian Sanderson seemed to have snuck that into the slide deck without me knowing. But the 5 values there are customer first. It's very easy to say you're customer first, but I think by virtue of the fact that between all 3 companies we've got an amazing client retention record, that says we've probably been doing a lot of these anyway over the years, but it's a good chance to put a bit of a label on them, if you like. So one team, we've always been very collegiate in the way we work. We haven't got this, the sales guys and the technical guys don't work well together. We've always worked really well together, and we want to continue to do that. We want to focus on excellence. We've never been the sort of companies who stack them high and sell them cheap. We've lost a lot of work over the years by walking away from business, but we want to focus on being excellent. We want to make things happen. I was having a conversation with a client who's actually on this WebEx not that long ago, where there's some paperwork that they need to raise to get something done, but I've said, look, let's just crack on. Let's get the ball rolling and let's just make it happen. Let's not wait for all the process. Process is important, but making things happen is even more important. You know, we're UK-wide anyway. We've got customers all over the UK. And doing the right thing, it's not about how much money we make or what's the easiest thing for us to do in some cases. Doing the right thing is really important. And these are the 5 values which, hopefully, if you've signed up to our Slaley Hall event in October, you will see us talking about as well. On that point, I hope everyone has received an invitation to our launch event at Slaley Hall in October. I wouldn't say we'll judge you if you don't turn up, but we kind of will judge you if you don't turn up. We want a true partnership. You know, you want a supplier that's going to jump when you want them to jump, and we want customers who really want to work with us. I think having an event like we're going to have in October, it just cements those relationships. I appreciate it's a long time out of the office. There is a bit of fun involved with doing some clay pigeon shooting as well. So if there's ever been a vendor that you want to shoot, then it might be a good idea to come along. I'm joking, of course. So I'm going to pass you over to Ian Sanderson in a second. I think most of you kind of know Ian Sanderson, but I do not want to assume that you do. Ian has been with us for approximately 9 years now. He started on the help desk. He worked his way up to the help desk manager. He then took a different role and started looking at new technology. He's been a consultant, and right now he's our pre-sales consultant. So Ian's had the benefit of seeing lots of different things in the business. He's a well-respected blogger. So if some of you have problems sleeping at night, then I would recommend you signing up to Ian's blog. And Ian can surely share some details on that. But, you know, joking aside, Ian is a very well-respected person in the community. He's a real techie, but he's also got a bit of a commercial head on him as well. So Ian's new role is pre-sale. So I'll not take up any more of your time. Ian will start with the WebEx proper now.
Right, thank you, Phil, and thank you all for joining. As Phil said at the start of the webinar there, if you do have any questions as you're going through, please pop them in the chat window, and we will have a short Q&A session at the end of the slide deck. So today, the 2 vendors that I'm going to focus on are VMware and Microsoft. I think they are things that are core and dear to our heart. It's you know, it's what you know us for. It's what we've helped deliver projects on. Well, over the last 11 years, I think, since now TrueSec have been going for. So I'm just going to build this out quickly, the VMware piece. Some technologies that are going end of life at the start of 2020, which you might not be aware of. So you've got VCS 6.0 going end of life. Got Horizon View 6. And some of the older versions of Site Recovery Manager, which I know a number of you use on a daily basis, these products now. And I've got a link there in the slide deck that you can look at when we distribute the slide deck, just to check any other products that are going end of life. Now, the simple answer for this to get, if you are running any of these older software versions, is just to upgrade. But what I want to do is put a bit of a different slant on this webinar, just talk to you about some other considerations, things you might not have thought about, because I think most of you by now know that, you know, there's some software going end of life, be that VMware, Microsoft, or other software stacks that you have within your organization. So what I want to say is, just as an example, how we've helped a manufacturing customer in the past with the VMware Horizon View upgrade. That's the VDI play. As we are, Sys Group are now TrueSec with that end-to-end IT practice that can help with more aspects of your IT. This particular customer wanted to upgrade, as I said, to the latest version of Horizon View. Now, if you just went ahead and done that, that would have caused absolute havoc in the environment. So, having that holistic view, we identified all those other pieces of the puzzle that interoperate with their environment that help deliver that Horizon View environment. So it ended up being a SAN upgrade, Active Directory upgrade, core vSphere upgrade, which then cemented and gave those building blocks to then perform the Horizon upgrade. So we like to hope that we're that trusted partner that, you know, we can do a lot of things, but we're specialists in those things as well. So Microsoft, same idea. I'm just going to build out the deck here. So these are the things that are going into life in, well, January 2020. There's not much time to get these sorted out. So you've got Server 2008 R2, Windows 7, which is on the same sort of kernel base as Server 2008, Exchange 2010, Office 2010, and Microsoft bought the Small Business Server, which incorporates Server 2008 and Exchange 2010. So you can see the bulk of those go end of life in January 2020. So there's a number of options here. Like I say, you can just upgrade those. I know we're engaged with a lot of customers at the moment on projects like this. If it's something you weren't aware of already, hopefully now you are. There it is in black and white. But there are other things to consider. If any of you receive communications from Microsoft on their Azure platform, you might have seen things like you can move those workloads to Azure and you'll get 3 years extended support on the software. So what I should probably clarify there is what that end of support piece means. It's no further security updates or software updates for all those products there. But Microsoft's dangling the big fat carrot to get you onto their platform, which is Azure, and trying to offer you that additional 3-year support, which is something we can help you do if you want, but are you just delaying the inevitable by giving yourself an extra 3 years to do so? And again, that's something we can talk to you about. Is that the right thing or not? Just another example, I think Office 365 is in a lot of IT managers, IT directors' thoughts at the moment. You know, it's making great waves into you know, the enterprise and the smaller customers as well. It's a really compelling option, especially when you're looking at license renewals and things. You might be on open value subscriptions for licensing. Microsoft really wants you to move to Office 365, and what that gives you is Exchange Online, gives you your Office applications. It means you can get rid of the servers that run Exchange, things like that. So you know, it's getting rid of a lot of those potential problems that are on the list there. That's software that's going end of life. But again, it's not the right option for everyone. And again, that's something we can talk to you about. I mean, just as an example, another one of our customers, a large housing association, they're running Exchange 2010, Server 2008 R2, Office 2010. I've got some great guys in the office who can run through you know, existing licensing. And for this particular customer, we saw that they had a number of enterprise CALs for Exchange 2010, which on closer inspection was a feature that was just rolled into the standard CALs with the later versions of Exchange. So say if that customer is blindly renewed, to be paying over the odds again for that licensing, you know, that's all part of this end of life analysis for you. But that particular customer, it was better for them to save the money on the CALs and move to Exchange 2016. So again, things like going to the latest version of Exchange, which is Exchange 2019. That's a two-step process. You can't jump there from 2010. So all those little things to consider that we can advise you on. So moving on. Let me just go back. So there's a link there as well. Same thing as the VMware one. You can check other software versions that are going end of life. So what does this mean for you? It's not all doom and gloom, but let me build out the deck for you. So that means there's no vendor support on the products, which I've mentioned. There's no security updates on the products, again, which I've already mentioned. And no software updates on the products. But it doesn't mean those solutions are going to stop working on those dates when they go into support. Of course they won't. People are still running Windows XP, you know it doesn't stop working, it will continue. But what I want to do is paint the bigger picture on some of the considerations that you might not have thought about if you don't at least consider upgrading these older versions of software. So the first one is if you have any sort of compliance, security compliance that you need to meet, like Cyber Essentials Plus. If you're not on a version of software that's receiving the latest security updates, that's going to be a big fat cross in the box saying, no Cyber Essentials Plus for you. You have to show that you're secure and your security posture meets the requirements of that Cyber Essentials Plus assessment. And the other thing, I mean, you can remember a couple of years ago, big ransomware stories in the news. You had WannaCry hit the NHS, caused £92 million worth of damage and disruption. There was Maersk hit with the NotPetya. That brought down, well, Maersk makes up a fifth of the world's global shipping supply. So a fifth of the world's ships were just dead in the water, like literally dead in the water, whilst NotPetya took over those machines. You know, that all spawned from one compromised device. So ultimately what I'm wanting to show you is this nice defense in depth onion. So it looks a bit like an onion. But these are the layers of protection that you need to consider. So now I'm focusing more on probably the host and application bit in the middle, just to give you an idea of how you can minimize and maybe mitigate some of the risk if you're unable to upgrade those end-of-life softwares, is where else to focus your attention. So on the network front, I'm sure you all know about firewalls. That's something that we are great in helping you with. If you have client VPN connections, we've got solutions to tighten security on that, from the likes of Gemalto to allow two-factor authentication. And look at access control lists, whitelists. Just ensure that you're hardening that outermost ring or layer of your onion. So if you move into the host, again, if you can protect that, so I'm talking about your VMware vSphere hypervisor hosts. You might have your small business server, which is absolutely core and key to your business operating successfully. You've got things like the ability to lock down and secure the boot up of that machine. But also you can enforce things like BitLocker or drive encryption, which can all be centrally managed from something like the Trend Micro security solution. But the bit that I said at the start there that I'm focusing on the most is the application layer. So if you think about your exchanges, your Office, your Horizon views, obviously if you can keep those up to date, great, you're helping to minimize the risk. But there are things to wrap around that as well, which again will help with this defense in depth strategy. We've got third-party patching solutions, which from Vanti, which not only patch the operating systems, it also patches other third-party applications such as Chrome, the WebEx plugin that you use to connect to this, things like that, Notepad++, what have you, it'll patch the lot. Or you've got your trend endpoint managers as well to help protect those applications. And another thing I know some of you are already invested in is another trend product called virtual patching. So what that does, it relies on the global defense network to analyze emerging threats that are out there. So your WannaCries, your NotPetya's, or any other ransomware attack, and it will very quickly on the fly implement a workaround to stop whatever that risk is from infiltrating your application layer of your environment. So that can sit in place until such a time the vendor releases the hotfix for that. And then finally, in the middle of the onion, the juicy onion, is data, which is the crown jewels of any organisation. The network, the host applications, you know, they can all be rebuilt, but if your data goes, you're up some kind of creek without a paddle. And ultimately, that's what the attackers of this world are trying to penetrate through those other three layers to get to that data. So I've already mentioned real-time protection from trend, which can protect that data. But there's other things as well. You know, you need to have a good backup of that data. Is it off-site? Is it off your primary network? Because ransomware doesn't stop at your backup files and say, oh, you know, it's a backup file. I'm not going to touch that. It's going to encrypt your backup files as well. And again, moving data to the cloud doesn't solve that problem. You still own that data. You still need to secure it and protect it. So the same things all apply. So moving on, that marvellous rant about defence in depth is some action points for you to consider. Now these are pretty self-explanatory. So where do you start? Before you can even think about a defence in depth strategy, or even just upgrading those systems that might be end of life, you need to assess your estate. You need to know what you have. There's no point going whole and starting doing stuff if you don't know what you have. I mean, I gave that example earlier of Horizon View needed an upgrade. If you just click upgrade, it might have a major impact on the rest of that environment. Once you've assessed it, you've got other options there. You can formulate an upgrade or a migration plan, or you can do nothing and accept the risks. Which brings us on to ways TrueSec can help. So I know a lot of IT departments, they always seem to be stretched thin. Every time I meet one of you guys, you're always running around trying to help the customer do your day-to-day operations. There's rarely much time to dedicate to additional projects like this, to assess the environment, find out what's there, find out what might be at risk. So that's a service that we could help you with. Just going back to my onion analogy, we can go all the way from the outer network right to the center of your core data, identify what you have, and make recommendations in a nice report for you as to what you should focus your attention on, what's end of life, what to upgrade. Now, I've already said this, we can take a holistic view of the environment to ensure that product interoperability is met. And I keep banging on about that example about Horizon View, but it's very true. Just don't look at things in isolation. Look at the big picture. Make sure all your pieces of the jigsaw come together to give you that wonderful picture at the end. And if that's not enough, we have some services to offer a wraparound service to ensure your whole estate remains in compliance. again, part of this merger that Phil mentioned at the beginning with TrueSec, we've got a lot of additional bums on seats in our support team / managed services team. We can monitor your environment for you, we can identify problems, or you can step it up a notch, and we can even patch and upgrade those systems on a yearly basis if there's a critical security vulnerability exposed, and there's a hotfix out there for that. We can get straight on and do that for you as part of the managed service. And the other thing there is to ensure you're in a position to upgrade to the latest software version. So I've touched on this a bit already. You've assessed the environment. We know what software and hardware you have. Hardware needs to remain supported as well. Your SANs, your network switches, your vSphere hosts, your small business server hosts, your desktops, they all have to be able to run the software that sits on top of them. Now, even if they physically can run the software, that still doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. The vendors have their own hardware compatibility list, and if your 3, 4, 5-year-old server's not on that list, then tough luck if you're in with a support call and they think it's a hardware issue. We can identify all of that for you and make sure that's all hunky-dory. And then the last piece of that is, it's just really wrapping it all up, is all of the above is the solutions we have available to help you transition from that end of supported software. Again, it doesn't have to be a migration from the software. We can offer those wraparound services to help offer a better and more secure solution for you. So that leads us on to the questions. I have my helper in the room, Zoe. Have there been any questions come through? All right, so we've got a couple of questions here. So the first one is, Exchange 2010's going end of life. What are the options available? So I've touched on that a bit. You can upgrade your on-prem Exchange infrastructure to 2016. I've already said it's a 2-step upgrade if you want to go to the latest and greatest Exchange 2019. Or there's the option to migrate to Office 365 with Exchange Online and just remove some of that pressure to host your own services in-house. And another question, so Windows 7 to Windows 10 upgrade, how can we move the user's data? So that's a great question. There's a few solutions to do that. If it was a virtual desktop infrastructure, you might already be utilizing something like VMware's UEM, which is their endpoint management and profile management solution. So all the data is kept separate from the desktop anyway, so as you move to a new operating system for your desktop, that just moves across. If you have a traditional desktop infrastructure, it's got PCs on desks, it depends really how you've got that set up. You might have shared user profiles on a server, in which case again Windows 10 can just be pointed to those as part of a migration. If not, then we've got solutions to harvest data from those desktops and help move that to the newer versions of the hardware. So any other questions, Zoe? Nope, no questions. And I think that pretty much takes us bang on to the half-hour mark. So I'd just like to thank you for joining this WebEx. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, I think most of you have my email address. If not, you should at least have one of our account managers' email addresses or phone numbers. Give them a call. and if there's something you'd like us to dive deeper on, we can certainly do that for you. I hope to speak to you soon. Thanks, and goodbye.